Hello, I hope you're all well. I'm going to give you a quick review of what was interesting on Thursday. I'm not going to be too redundant with things we've already seen and that I'm showing you in the whole review, like section by section, but I'm going to focus on the things I want you to pay the most attention to. Alright, here I left everything from last Wednesday's review, and we're going to work from the point where the price connects with that. So here was all the consolidation that remained after the price action of Wednesday morning's opening, and finally in the afternoon this rise. Where this rise reached, ending here with Thursday's opening to the area, where I told you the first trade I saw at the opening took place, which was this one. This one had been a responsible. If another responsible party was brought up, it was this responsible party who had brought up the one we saw in a minute in that video. So that's the high I have marked there, which had been linked to all of this we're about to see now. Alright, so it's important to be responsible there. The price reached there in the afternoon and did the Thursday opening right away, distributing from that point. Next, let's cover the New York section and our latest news there. So, what do we have here? We already know which important area we are working with. So we have a tap. Well, the tap had been here in seconds. In fact, that day, with that entry, the price quickly pulled back to that area. So there was the tap, and here we would have a double top from this high. It took it out here at 8:30 with the announcement and faced rejection in that there's no close with a body, and beyond that there's no close with a body. Look at this reaction. So what have we talked about when there's a strong candle in one direction, and then, although it's not a single bearish one, you have that same immediate move without making a structure, and then it falls. So that's a wick on the higher time frame. Look at this rejection that happens from that point. And our law regarding this whole displacement would be this low on a smaller time frame would be this over here, but on a higher time frame that we are looking at would be this low here. The entire lead complete, since this high was abandoned, not this here, because this is an internal low on a higher time frame. Then according to that rejection, we come to take the low. Then the announcement comes out. This starts to form here. Another rejection comes out from here. It causes a reaction, but it simply brought us to where the area of the flip that might have occurred here. This high and this low. Seeing it by structure, it would be like the area to take, if they only want to take the area of the news that you all know. I often tell you that too. A news item takes its wick, if it is a data week, if it leaves a very long wick, or in this case the area left by the news. Then the tab is at 50 from this rejection and ends up fulfilling the function. The bearish rejection, here and then, here we get the same. It takes the low again. Now, yes. And again, several rejections. And look at that movement again, so linearly upward without major pullbacks. We go up again to 5. And again, a rejection. Not as strong as this one here, but it's quite clear. And look, it's not just below this low, but also below these internal lows. I really like this to consider greater effectiveness in a rejection, when it not only closes above a swing, low swing high, but also within some internal lows. So it works to come and take the high of all the displacement areas. It ends up taking with the opening. Well, the opening comes to what this sweep did. And with the opening with this rejection, it ends up taking the high and ends up taking the high of the 1 minute area that we had marked. This responsible now, where did the price get here? Look, it's another one. What else do we have here? If you have on the day, you know that as that opening, almost everything will look like, and in that type, the high volume and fast movements of the price. It's not like in Asia or London that everything goes with candles with bodies, but at opening, and in reality, that is why I grabbed the fractal, because it is a fractal of the... It happens here that this was responsible for having taken out this high. Here we had worked with the one from the flip area, and here is the one from the complete swing zone of this entire area. And this was the fractal responsible for breaking it. It's the responsible in the opening. So look how, added to these rejections, the price didn't reach that high of being responsible. So that's where the topic of order flow comes in. And also look at another particularity that happened here, which I forgot to mention before. Observe at 9:30 a.m. with this drops opening, removing the low, while the ES showed divergences. It was still protecting this low here, and this low here, which would be the equivalent to this one. Over here, look how far the ES was from taking out the low. Nasdaq is always the most aggressive one that takes out the most lows and highs. So whenever I'm seeing these kinds of strong moves, I like to look at the ES to get an idea of what to take for my operations. Then on top of that rejection that happened here, it was quite good to start going long. The Dow was also quite bullish, but the best is to look at the ES, which is the most correlated to Nasdaq. Okay, so what do we have here? Rejection, rejection, rejection. After removing that, in fact, what remains when we remove that? This last movement that was here today, I'm here. This last move down, that was here, was responsible for taking out the high of that. Responsible. That was making the double top here. The price came back to it, touches it, and tries to distribute again. But again, we get rejection, now getting a double top. That peak remained unmitigated on Wednesday at open. The fastest mitigation was seen lower, as shown in a previous video. This one stayed unmitigated, creating a double top. Look at all these rejections, especially the 5-minute mark. Even a small body here shows rejection. But that responsible is not taking action. So you already know the topic of order flow. Now from here, we return to this flip area. This area here, this last movement down, before going up, and we started working with a fractal from here. This was quite beautiful. There are traps. The trap that I share with you. Here, there was another one. And this was the scenario I dealt with the most in the execution session with you. When the price is in a range, apart from the economic calendar, it was a holiday week. We already know that we can expect these types of market profiles on days like those. So it is good to operate swift, rejections from origins and everything. So let's take a look at what happened there. This was the part I was mostly working on here. That structural flip we had up there at that origin. Since that rejection there was a low, a high, and it takes out the low. Looking at it like this by candle pattern, since we didn't have body, we can't see it by structure, but in 5 seconds, we did have some bodies. Close up here then, I took that whole area. And what am I doing then? By then, when the price was around here, well, I sent you an example of an entry for case studies. What had stayed around here was a valid price zone, and it gave us some continuation, and we were working with that by order, liquidating some internals. See how this turns into a trap? If I'm not mistaken, it hadn't hit the 50, it was only the 30. Here is the tap at 50, it pulls out that flip, which additionally comes with a rejection in 5 seconds, all from an area that was around here. There were quite a few fractals here, to be honest. And it comes and takes itself from here to finish table 50. But you know that I'm not looking at structure all the time. I'm looking at order flow through validated areas and responsibilities. Done. Price valued this area. I start working with that, and I start working with the responsibilities we have here. An area of responsibility takes it out. In fact, another one would be this candle here goes back to it and gives us a small continuation. So when it takes out the last contrary movement, it's this one here. Also, see how the price here returned to it, and from there, it went. It's more than a flip, more than an origin. Understand what is here and what broke. What is in this area? What positioning breaks from here? And then, if we see it from a higher time frame, it would be this one, the responsibility where there is more consolidation. Now we would have this whole area responsible for breaking this one here. If I'm not mistaken, I had also taken a short with this responsibility, and this was the other one I had sent. Well then, this one becomes responsible for breaking the responsible varies. See how from a reaction of a responsible, a new responsible is built. That's why we don't want to be guessing that the price is going to be breaking swing, low, swing, high. All the time, we are part of a reaction, which almost guarantees us a system from the correct areas. And that's it. We don't have to be right about direction, highs or lows. We just join those reactions, and that's it. And well, the tap gives it to the area. In fact, look, here is the last move before breaking. Actually, there's a flip too. And this here becomes the double bottom tap, so it's the responsible one. And here, it makes a bullish flip. But notice how the flip is sometimes already late, when one doesn't understand what these areas are. Look here, the flip fails, because it reached the high. Finally, it couldn't break it. When you start having retrace, 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 and it doesn't break. The closest one, you already know, is at risk, and the area is still maintained. Here you see the rejection, and a well-placed long. Case studies, well, like this, with a bit of zoom out. That was the other important thing here. So we had agreed on this area then, and the price started to be here. Here it's a trap. It comes again to this area here. We have worked before on this, and additionally, if it's 1 minute, this would be responsible for pulling us out of this flip by 1 minute candles too. And this was the high that set the last low here, and we went up. So this whole area here would be responsible. All of this. So in confluence with what we saw in 5 seconds, look how the price comes from what? From rejections. Rejects here, comes and rejects here. Comes and takes out that low, keeps holding the area, rejects here too. Comes and takes out the high, again and again. We get a rejection, and now the full pattern is here, from all this flip area. The full pattern, double bottom, and how complete. When do I know when to stop taking the sweeps, which obviously didn't sweep here. But look at this, finally the fractal around here gets fully mitigated. But the important thing is the 30% from the origin that we left, since The reversal happened around here after the opening rise, 30%. Now yes, and look at the aggressive drop, and there was no going back. There were no more rejections. These sweeps, a fairly strong close even below the responsible one, and with that, we ended up going already in the afternoon. As you know, I'm not watching it anymore. But that was what I most wanted to show you, the topic of SMT, knowing from which areas those responsible are generating their positions, understanding the price by areas, so as not to be simply watching highs and lows, and not being so mechanical and vulnerable to traps. And already ahead, I had seen another little thing late. When I saw that the market was going to close, it was simply an area that validated the price by order flow. And from this area, something was broken here that gave us continuation too. So I had taken that, and the price reaches it and gives us continuation. And that was the one responsible for breaking a responsible one here. This, that the price had even reached it and had given continuation. So look at this. It takes it out, and although it apparently does a flip with bodies, look at the low here. The high, a new low with bodies and a new high with bodies, it takes out the high. But look at how that siesta flip fails, because it reaches that area validated by order flow. And it's important because it's responsible for taking out an area that the price had previously validated also by order flow. And it doesn't end up taking it out. So avoid participating in those flips that didn't end up giving us a confirmation in one direction. It ends up taking that to the price. And well, that's a bit of what I wanted to show from that day. Obviously, it's a day to study. This is very beautiful. The way to execute it is exactly the alternative I gave you. Go study that well. Look at all these rejections. Look at all this trend line that ended up being taken just to come to the flip that remained here also without mitigating. And then it ended up taking out these lows again, but with rejection. And well, the market today opened based on what Powell talked about on Friday, that there was no market, and gave quite positive news. And look at this gap from today. The opening again, there's divergence. The ES is at new historical highs again. Gold is also shooting up because of the war situation, so be very alert to strong movements already in April. It's already the second quarter of the year. And we already have important news to work with. So since there's quite a bit of volatility, let me know if you have any questions. I'll be around. Have a great week. Bye-bye.